bring in political economist Andy Bush, along with Kingsview Asset Management CIO Scott Martin. A couple of things here, Scott. First to you. Labor conditions tight. You know that the Fed has a dual mandate. They've got monetary policy and, of course, the employment picture. That doesn't seem to me like they can make the case for a raise right now.
Well, tight's an interesting word to use because when you have millions that have left the eligible labor force and unemployment rate that has since fallen to 4.9%, I guess you could call that tight. Now, I would look at average hourly earnings last month at 0.1% and a year-over-year basis, Cheryl, at what, roughly 2.5%, which is, by the way, kind of close to a multi-month high, but really not that hot to me. So I think you're right. I think modestly is probably about the rule of the day here, which to me means that the Fed's off the table prior to the election, but maybe on it for December. And
Andy, economic activity continued to expand, modest pace. We've got some ISM numbers this morning that were frankly kind of weak. So it's not like the economy is firing in all cylinders. Still, you've got a little bit of a downward moment here for the markets, a little bit of pressure for the markets. It looks like they're potentially thinking and they're leading towards that rate hike coming in September, the 2021 meeting.
Look, this Fed is confused. It does not know what it's doing. It doesn't have a playbook. It's sowing confusion within each speech that they do. On one hand, they say labor market conditions are tight. On the other hand, they said the economy is modest. I mean, this started back in August, and it has continued on, whether it's Yellen or Fisher, you name the Fed official. The Fed has made it really clear that there are limits to monetary policy, and that's where we're at. We're not going to get growth from new monetary stimulus, so we know that's pretty much off the table. This is a question of where do we get growth from. The Fed can't help that, and it can't help earnings right now. And that's why this market's really kind of confused and doesn't know where to go at these levels.
And Scott, I got to go back to this jobs picture for a second. I'm still not convinced, even though we're seeing the market trade down just a little bit, still not convinced about this rate hike in September. I say that because if you look at the August jobs report, 151,000 jobs added. If you go through all the revisions throughout the summer, it was 1,000 job net loss. If you don't have jobs, you don't have growth, you don't have an economy going anywhere, and frankly, you got an election coming up that may be a game changer, Scott.
I agree, and if you look back at employment in the last 6 months, Cheryl, you've had a couple what I would call stinker numbers in there, too, which to me, I think supports what Andy's saying, which is I think the economy is modest or moderate at best. And to me, the Fed using those words does not suggest that they're going to be raising rates anytime soon. But I think that's what the market likes here. I know that we're down a bit in some, especially the interest rate sensitive areas today. But I think as long as the Fed stays on the sidelines here and at least stays at a quarter point, I think equities are not too big of a risk here if you're investing at home.
I also, Andy, and again, I hate to disagree with the Fed on what they see as the activity out there. But, they're saying it was a quote. The oil bus has passed, Andy. That's what the Fed said in the note. But if you look at what's happening with the Saudis and with output out of the Middle East, there's not really going to be a freeze. I mean, we've heard discussions about an oil production freeze out of the Middle East, but I'm sorry, I just don't buy it.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't about right now. I mean, we're going to be in $40 to $60 a barrel. I firmly believe that for a while. This is about the lack of new major oil projects that are occurring. 2010 to 2014, there were 45 to 50. 2015, there were 10. 2016, there were 5 or 6 so far. This is about 2019, and oil prices will be higher if we don't see a rebound in new projects. So that's one thing. The other thing that I'll tell you, too, is productivity. You look at these presidential candidates and you look at which one has a plan to raise productivity, and the only one, I have to say it, doing a lot of analysis on this at my website it's Donald Trump, and he has it in his tax reform plan. Hillary Clinton doesn't have anything like that. So if you want to grow the economy, if you want to grow productivity, and that's where you get GDP growth, you have to look to Trump. And I know there's a lot of people out there that don't like that, but the facts are the facts, and that's where you got to look.
If you look at his economic plan, there you go. Now, Scott, earlier this week, Donald Trump did make some comments about the Fed in regard to the U.S. economy under President Obama. I want you to take a listen.
Well, they're keeping the rates artificially low so the economy doesn't go down, so that Obama can say he did a good job. That's the only reason that the rates are so low. So they're keeping the rates artificially low so Obama can, go out, play golf after January and say that he did a good job.
Scott, if you listen to Donald Trump just now, it makes it sound like you're not going to get a rate hike in September because it behooves them to not raise rates until after the election.
I think it'd be a tremendous risk if the Fed hiked interest rates in September here, Cheryl, just in a couple weeks. Remember, the Fed chairman, although maybe not the direct descendant or extension of the White House, is an appointed position by the president. So there has to be some relationship or possible influence there. I know that's controversial. So certainly I think Ms. Yellen is saying, hey, let's just keep things status quo for now. Let's roll into November, hope that the economy does not fall off the table. And then with the new president coming in, obviously Trump has talked about removing Yellen as one of his first orders of business. I think that's probably a good move, given what she's done so far. That's when we deal with the interest rate hike that may or may not be coming.
Oh, my goodness. Andy, Scott saying that maybe the White House has a direct phone number over to the Fed. Shocker.
How dare I?
Well, we know that the Fed's concerned about what's happening with income inequality and other issues like that. What I would say is where I'm really disappointed with this Fed is that they are not like the European Central Bank and Mario Draghi. They don't go in front of Congress and say, Congress, do something, act, reduce regulations, fix the tax situation for corporations and individuals. That's where we need to go. We're at the limits of monetary policy globally, and reform and economic reform and tax reform is what we need. I would love to see Yellen stand up and say, guys, I'm done helping you. You need to step up.
She might be done either way. That's just my opinion. Andy, Scott, guys, thank you very much. Appreciate covering the breaking news of the Beige Book. Thank you, guys.
You bet.